He's a joke. He's an absolute disaster. And if I was the Ottawa 67s, I don't know how they're fully doing in the OHL this year, but at the end of the year, you got to look at yourself and be like, I know it's a very different, but like, surely this guy can't. He can. I don't know.
He can't be back.
He can barely run a tap. It feels like. Like the whole the practicing is ridiculous.
Not practicing because you say the players are exhausted when you had a 3-week training camp that no one told you had to have is ridiculous, embarrassing, stupid. And guess what, Liam? Hockey Canada deserves every ounce of this. I am a diehard Canadian hockey fan. I can't wait for the Four Nations, best on best. Can't wait for the Olympics, and I usually buy into the World Juniors. But with the state of Hockey Canada the last couple of years, how can you cheer for them? Smug, arrogant.
Yeah, they people were saying after everything that's kind of happened with Hockey Canada over the last forever, it feels like, to be honest, it's like these last couple of World Juniors have probably been calmer for what it was.
Yeah,
what it's been all about, and that's too bad for the players. I do think the players deserved better because they're an extremely talented team. There's a ton of good players on there, but like the quotes from Cameron yesterday of like. I forget who it was. Scott Wheeler tweeted. I think it was
Scott Wheeler asked the question.
No, it was someone else.
Cam Robinson's question about do you have any regrets?
Any regrets? That was it. And Dave Cameron said no, but then Cam Robinson from Elite Prospects quote tweeted and said he had a big eye roll before he said that, before he answered that question too. And it's like, what do you mean you had no regrets? Like, you know, like you gotta kind of live and die by your decisions, but how can you say you have no regrets? You lost 3 times in 5 games, and one of them was against Latvia. No disrespect to Latvia. They were incredible this event, and I hope that program keeps developing too. But like, come on. There is a lot of regrets, and it's okay to have regrets. Just admit your faults and say, yeah, we probably could have tried a few things differently. But to like basically just like live and die by every word that he had said and like every move he had made is like just wrong. Like have some accountability for how terrible of a job you did.
Oh, totally. But there's no accountability, and there never is, right? It's frustrating right now with Hockey Canada. I think their selection process is broken. I think the way they do things is very broken. I think we can go up multiple levels, and like they seem to want to reward players for not being good players, but for doing it the Hockey Canada way, you know? And it's annoying, and I'm sick of it. And Lance says it's bad leadership. It's absolutely bad leadership. And Dave Cameron personifies everything that's wrong with Hockey Canada. So they deserve to lose that game last night. I hope it's a wake-up call. I'm not sold on it being a wake-up call. You're about to knock over your beer. I'm not sold on it being a wake-up call, and I think it's going to be more of the same shit. And guess what, Canada? You've lost in back-to-back years in the quarterfinals of a tournament that you have no excuse to not dominate.
At least medal.
And Russia hasn't been here in 4 years.
That also makes it way worse. Way, way worse. I do think there needs to be some respect put on Czechia for this. Their program at multiple levels has come a long way and is like, they're developing a lot of players now. I was reading some pieces last night. It was actually Scott Wheeler as well. He put this out there. It's just like, for the first time in a while, Czechia actually left good players off their roster. Well, usually it's like they take the 25 best players because they only have like 25 to pick from, but they left like 3 or 4 guys off. But it's just like, agreed. Like this cannot continue. Like next one's in Minnesota and St. Paul, I think. Whatever.
They're going to get steamrolled by the Americans.
They have to figure it out. And do you know what, too? And I'm curious if you can refresh my memory on this. I actually have no problem with the idea of like players missing. Like it's going to happen. You're Canada. And I feel like every year, the players who were picked, not this past draft, but the one before, are the ones who mostly make the team, right? Yeah. So I'm not like too upset with like the idea of like guys like Seneca not making it and like TJ Ginley and Lindstrom. I saw people point out that they're both injured.
Yeah, they can't.
Like, there's big players from this one that missed, but like Canada had multiple first-round picks on this roster, and even like when we spoke to Tyler Ennis yesterday, Matt Duchene did not make his World Junior team that year.
Nope.
He was a 3rd overall pick, for crying out loud. Like it's gonna happen. Like the excuse of like this team didn't have enough talent is incredibly weak. It's actually a terrible excuse. They had more than enough talent. If you look through this endless first-round picks on this team.
Yeah.
And ones to become first-round picks. Like Porter Martone is going to be an incredible player. Gavin McKenna, I don't think we actually got to see how good Gavin McKenna actually is. He's one of the best players I've ever seen play in minor hockey. And I know that's minor hockey and it's a different level, but like it's Connor Bedard and then it's Gavin McKenna.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, there isn't a close third in Western Canada from the group I've seen, and that is from Bedard onwards. And then like losing Matthew Schaefer was not ideal, but like it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like Bo Akey, to bring it back to Edmonton a bit, was the 7th defenseman the entire tournament and a player got injured. That makes no sense. You clearly just didn't want him to be there. So why take him? Or why even play him? It's just so bad.
Mainlander Tim, at least Canada's Four Nations GM isn't full of hubris and only picking his guys, right? I mean, but they're Hockey Canada guys. Remember when we used to joke about the Oilers being an old boys club?
Yeah.
Good Lord, Hockey Canada is a step above that. It's almost like the royal family. You got to be born into it.
Do you think there needs to be, this is an interesting one. Do you think there needs to be like a development team in Canada? Because the US has one, and I think people always look at the World Juniors and be like, well, the US always wins. It's like, yeah, but there is other tournaments underneath that Canada do typically win. So I don't know. I'm not totally sold. I also think it's a lot different because between the CHL and the USHL, obviously the CHL is 3 leagues. I don't know exactly how it would work. And I actually don't know if it would be, I don't know if it would work. I think they just need better people to pick the team. Or better staff in the program.
I think they need, I think maybe even some sort of consistency with the staff. Like maybe you can't do a development program, but can you do the same coach that travels and that goes up with an age group? He goes from the U17s, U18s with like that age group. Because here's the other thing too, is like Frank kind of said it today on DFO Live. Also, there was a funny comment from an American in here.
That didn't make me laugh.
WTF is a kilometer. It's what literally everyone else in the world uses. But anyways, I digress. Frank was like, there used to be a fear when you played Canada in the World Juniors on Canadian soil. You, as the other country, had to look across and be like, holy shit. They are like a unit. They are going to roll us.
They're going to
I get that when I look at the Americans right now. And maybe it's because of the NTDP and they play together and they have the camaraderie, but like the Americans have this swagger about them. And Canada hasn't had that for years.
It does feel like since that Trevor Zegras World Juniors, when they had the garbage cans with all the logos on them. You remember that one? And I can't remember what it even said about it after, but it feels like from that event on, there's been a bit of a turn. And I will 100% say this with pure confidence. The United States is not a better country than Canada at hockey. Canada can't send all their best players. Canada had Celebrini, Bedard, and Zach Benson all available. No, I don't think so.
They've closed the gap so significantly. Totally. Like Four Nations is going to be best on best. That's a coin flip. And Canada doesn't have a goalie.
But I think at the junior level, I still think Canada runs a show if it's best on best. I really do. I actually don't think it's particularly that close.
I don't know. I don't know if you can make that jump. I get what you're saying. No Bedard, no Celebrini, no Will Smith for US. I know he's not
like 10 points this year.
He's not Celebrini.
Celebrini and Bedard are point per game players. Maybe Bedard maybe a little less, but I actually think Canada would.
Yeah.
And like it's all hypothetical, but like Canada.
I'm just not giving Hockey Canada that cop out.
No, I'm just giving the players the credit, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting one. There's a lot to go with here. Canada's got some things to work on.
What's up, Nation citizens? If you like that video, then you need to be subscribed to the Oilers Nation YouTube. Podcasts, live shows, exclusive interviews, and analysis. Everything you need from your favorite voices at Oilers Nation. And you don't want to miss any of it, so hammer that subscribe button.